Well, this question comes up in a lot of interviews, and there's a lot of questions on shows and all that where our name originated from. And the short answer is that when we started this band almost 10 years ago, well, me and Klaus came from a band called Eclipse, and it was basically the same band, but we have changed our musical direction in sort of way that we wanted to find a name that would go well with the band's music and the band's art. And during that time, I read about a cult in ancient Greece that used to praise the god of the moon, Luna, and I really fell in love with the kind of a feminine touch of the name, and that would be a really kind of a contrast to the kind of very aggressive kind of music that we used to play. And that's how it came up, and it was almost 10 years ago when we were just youngsters. When we started off, we didn't have any other ambition than just to be able to write songs and play them in Umeå. And just getting out of the city and playing in another city, it was big enough for us. It was really, really strange. And in the neighboring city called Skellefteå, where actually Earache and Magnus is from, they have like a free festival every year. And we played that. It could have been in '99 or something like that. And then we were approached by an Englishman called Duncan. And he had a small label, which were called Rage of Achilles, yeah. And he asked us if we wanted to record a mini CD or something like that. We used a couple of songs, and we said yes. And for the budget of that mini CD, we recorded every song that we had, so it became an album. And we recorded it really fast, and it was just some kind of, just to get everything out that we had. And I remember one evening when I was sitting in a cafe in Umeå, and I think it was Klaus that called me and said that, like, you got 5 Ks in Kerrang. We got 5 Ks in Kerrang. And we didn't think much of it. And then, like, slowly but steadily, the band have grown, and we got a new label, and we did bigger and bigger tours. And all of a sudden, we were touring Europe and America and travel all around the world to play. But in my mind, we're still the same band as we were when we rehearsed for just being able to play in Umeå. And it's a really awkward situation that we found ourselves in, and I see I still think it's strange that people actually pay to come and see us play in cities and countries all around the world, and I at least I try to appreciate every single second of it. It's hard to, like inspiration and all that. It's hard to put in words what kind of, how the creative mind works, because it just happens. And what inspires the whole, inspires a song, for example, can be anything. But I definitely think that the geographical situation in where anyone lives is very has a very big impact on that person's creativity. And I don't know, at least my opinion is that the last 2 albums, Somewhere Along the Highway and Eternal Kingdom, at least in my mind, have been very much connected, at least to the geography and the kind of scenery where we grew up.
Especially somewhere along the highway.
Yes, where the where the location actually, for me, created some kind of earth-like feeling. Where we recorded it in this barn in the middle of nowhere in the woods. But you never know. But it's definitely a beautiful scenery in the north of Sweden. You should all go and visit if you have the time.
Yeah.
It's quite hard to answer that kind of question since the word organic is a bit difficult to understand what that means. I mean, I think that what you might mean is that something happens by itself, that one part of the song leads to another and all that. And I would say that that's pretty much the case.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good that, or to point out that we often are writing towards some very sharp deadline, so we don't have any much time to rewrite stuff, and so therefore it's a bit of a chaos, but still we have a deadline in mind, so there's always a point where the argument has to
end. Yeah. Well, and that's both a pro and con, because you can rewrite stuff all the time and you can argue for ages, and so in some sense it's very good to have a deadline that on this and this date we're gonna start recording the album, so it must be basically be done. But then again, I think that it would be nice for once to actually just write songs and write an album and go into the studio when we feel
ready.
When we feel that the album is done. That's a luxury we haven't had for many years, and I think that, well, it might not turn out better, but at least it would be an interesting way to work.
It's often you don't know how the song is going to be until it's recorded and done. So it kind of has its own life.
Well, yeah, and the problem is that there is no, there's no intention in what kind of feeling we want to create in the audience, because every audience member is a different person and all the band members are different persons. So I don't know.
It's like an explosion of different inputs from all the members and all the equipments that we use when we record, and we often don't know exactly how it's going to be until it's done, and then it's often an experience to hear, oh, this is what really happened after all. So
yeah, and it's always interesting to get a response from fans through emails and after shows and all that, and see how they react to each song, and no emotional response is right or wrong. That's beautiful with art. Well, maybe not exactly a country and western fan. Well, me personally, I like good music, but I have a very soft spot for old men like Tom Waits or David Eugene Edwards and Nick Cave, and I know that all or most of the members in Luna also have the same kind of musical preferences.
Yeah.
So I would say that that could have been something that at least helped us create that song, and it's a song that we just recently included in the set and was very, very well received, and I would say that we would probably, or at least hopefully, continue playing it for the next year or so. Well, the lyrical content on every album is very much different, and what inspires the whole writing it's quite hard to tell when it's something that just happened in my head or in Klaus' head. I know that we've gone from the first two albums, which was very much social commentary from an outside perspective, and we went from the Beyond to Salvation, and the theme, the overwhelming theme about globalization and global systems were still there, but I mean, and since we are, or at least I in my writing, I've always tried to keep momentum, to never be stuck in one place. I created some kind of a idea of a made-up character that, and his observation about these kind of systems, and wrote the whole album around that theme. Somewhere Along the Highway was an album that it's totally personal. So it went from observation from outside point of view into observation out of a made-up character's point of view, and to observation out of my point of view. And on the latest album, Eternal Kingdom, it is observation of a non-fictional character's point of view, a third person. And that album, I mean, the lyrics for that album was not inspired by anything. It pretty much translations, but also a translation from Swedish to English, but also, you know, how me and Klaus have understood Holger Nilsson's world. So of course it's kind of a interpretation, but in terms of just inspirations, it's hard to say. It's just something that happens. I get a lot of questions about salvation and about the religious content in that album. And I must say, and this is my personal opinion, is that salvation is not at all about religious salvation at all. It's about a man which sees the troubles in the world, and all these inputs and what he sees becomes too much for him, so he totally collapses. And it's about the struggle of how he wants to find his salvation and some kind of tranquility within this world. And me personally, I don't believe in a higher power, or I don't see no reason to believe in a higher power. So there's no kind of religious undertone in any of my lyrics. That doesn't mean they can't be transcending the mind or whatever, but still, it's no religion involved. I think that male loneliness do have have had a very important part of our writing throughout the years. I think it's an important issue to address, and I think it's an issue that a lot of males in general can identify with. Why male loneliness is so special is because we are, well, the gender roles are very much based around how men should manage themselves and the aggressiveness and just the be a man thing. And there's a lot of people, a lot of men, of course, that can't identify with that kind of role, and that alienates them from what they believe that people expect from them. And that kind of diverse and the contrast within that issue is really an important and an interesting.
It's interesting to express male in the manly, in general, way of not being able to express themselves. That problem is that personal problem is very interesting to dive into, I think.
Yeah. And I also think that it's not the last time we ever touch that issue, so we'll see what the future holds. That whole song came from a dream where I was changing this woman from a field and through the woods and through mountains, and all of a sudden I came to a seashore, and she was already out on a boat on the sea, and there on the shore I met myself. But the strangest thing was that I had the number 34 tattooed on my chest, and I have no idea what that meant, because I woke up and I haven't gone through therapy yet and done some dream analysis, so I have no idea where that came from, but it did inspire me to write the lyrics for that song.
Hopefully, we've always, or no, not always, but for a while at least discussed it as a possible thing to do. It would be very interesting, though, to have Swedish lyrics, and in a not so very distant future, maybe it will happen. I don't know, but.
It's hard, since it should not be an end in itself. It should be. That choice should be motivated by maybe us trying to, as I said in the earlier response concerning lyrics, that we always try to keep momentum, and that goes for music too. Never to not be too stuck in the same spot, and just try to move. And I'm not saying move forward, but always keep on the move and always try to do something new. So that might come up in the future.
No, it's not democratic in that opinion that everybody has one vote, but democratic that everybody is a part of it. But I would say that it's different from each song.
Yes, of course. But I think it's quite an important point that art in itself is never democratic, because it's first off, it's not concrete choices. It's not A or B. So it's impossible to have a clear vote. And I also think that it would be, at least in our kind of situation where it's so many band members, to write a song. I mean, we could go on for ages, but there's also a point to be made that it's important that everyone feel that they make a difference, and that they can come up with their own suggestions without being, you know, without feeling that they're messing with someone else's work. Every song that comes out of Cult of Luna is a Cult of Luna song, and every member.
I think every member signs under on each song that
Yeah.
we're satisfied, and if not, we will sort it out before we release it in some way.
But it's very important to say that the writing process, it's almost humorous in that way that it's almost the same, that for a long time everything can go very smooth without any conflict, and then we have these huge fights, and which I must say I'm very often guilty of, but then again. Yeah, and then we somehow come in agreement.
It could be sometimes a clash of different ideas that everybody has to. Nobody will get their 100% will through, but maybe to fight different angles and inspirations to one. Unique, different sound or song or idea or whatever. Yeah. That is very hard and painful process, but when it's done, it's very relieving, because then it comes back to me, at least, that oh my God, this is never. I would never expect this when we started. So it's always a good experience. Well, about the equipment I use, I often try to change the synthesizers for each album. So and it's so I've changed the synthesizer that I've used throughout those 3 albums that I have been included with. But for the latest album, I'm mostly using an Moog Voyager, and then an organ, Hammond organ, and just a regular piano, and try to create the sounds very analog and through amps and all, and then the sample part of it is just a way of taking those sounds that you create in the studio and sample them. So I don't sample any other. I just sample the sounds that I've, or me and Magnus or Cult of Luna has made in the studio, to have them exactly the way they are live, because there's so many acoustic stuff that it's not possible to recreate with amps and all.
This might come as a surprise for a lot of people, but the vocal job in Cult of Luna is pretty much a 50-50 job between me and Klaus. And on the last album, actually, Anders made some vocals, and and I don't know what this kind of a mix-up originates in. I've done backup vocals on every album, from the first one until this one, and from Somewhere Along the Highway, it really became a 50-50 job. One thing that might have confused this issue is that when we're on tour and Klaus unfortunately can be with us, I do vocals on the songs that Klaus is doing lead on. But now Klaus, he sings his song and I sing my song, and we back each other up as good as we can. So I'm really glad that I had the chance to clear up this misconception. One thing that happened when we recorded Somewhere Along the Highway, that was I know worth telling is that we recorded this album in kind of a cottage or a wooden barn-like house in the middle of the forest outside of Umeå, and it was like the scenery of the Blair Witch Project. It was during the fall, and it was the scale of the colors was in brown and orange, and it was and we used to sleep there for some nights, and during one evening it emerged some kind of a strange looking woman from the woods, and there were it was a meadow just in front of the house, and she started dancing there, and I don't think she knew that we were there. So we were standing in the windows and watched her do some kind of a free-spirited dance or whatever. And then she walked into the woods again, and I've never seen her since. I would say that we daily get emails from the US that ask us, when are you coming over? Why aren't you coming over? Are you going to come over this year? And all I can say is that we might come over. we want to come over.
We want to come over.
It's just that we are 8 people, and it's hard work to arrange longer tours. And since we can't get over to America for just a week or so, that's why it's been hard to arrange. But keep waiting. We might just knock on your door anytime soon. But thank you so much for asking, and everyone that asked us for this DVD interview. There were a lot of questions about us coming to America. Yeah, and keep waiting.